Hey, I'm Wesley Schultz from the Lumineers,
Hi, my name is Taylor Meier. I play in a band called Caamp.
and you are watching Consequence.
We've been, not like figuratively chasing Wes in the Loonies, but in our hearts, like we have been for, it feels like a decade, honestly. Um, I used to cover Lumineer songs at open mics in college, and you know, we didn't. I never met y'all or even saw y'all until um, right before pandemic. But yeah, I guess from a standpoint of like um, people we look up to, y'all fall very highly on the list.
Wow, that's thank you, man. I really appreciate that. It means a lot because I really love your guys' music and your voice. And I'd heard you guys. There's a station in Denver called KBCO, and they were the first to play us in the area, and um, so they were playing you guys, and I was like, "Who's this?" Your voice jumped out at me right away, and I think I told you that when I met you. But it reminded me of like some weird mixture of like, you know, I want to say Otis Redding and Ray LaMontagne or something. There's like something really
Oh,
smoky in what you do, and I really, I think it's very. You can find a lot of talented people, but people that sound distinct and like themselves is such a rare thing. And I immediately picked up on that and admired that about what you guys did. But then it was really funny because we were gonna play this long tour together before the pandemic, and one of my friends, his name's Pat, and he's like, he he drunkenly was like, "Oh, Camp is opening for you guys? Yeah, man, they're my favorite band." And I'm like, "Yo, I'm sitting right here, like giving him shit." But he was obsessed. He was obsessed, and he started showing me all these other songs,
oh,
and
cool.
then the pandemic hit, and then we were about to go back on. The tour was about to re up, and I was so happy that you guys were willing and available to do it because uh, I knew finding out you guys had sold out Red Rocks, it didn't surprise me, but twice, and that you said yes to this tour, it meant a lot, and it's already been an incredible run in the few shows we've done already. So, um, yeah, I'm happy you guys are out here.
Dude, likewise. And thank you for, on that note, for re-offering us, because I know that like, obviously everyone took crushing blows in our own regards, like when pandemic hit, and we all sorted through that in different ways. And Camp, that we had a big year lined up, but the main blow to our hearts and souls was like those Lumi shows. We were like,
Damn.
all those the festivals getting canceled, and we were gonna play Bonnaroo for the first time, and all this stuff,
Yeah.
and like it was kind of just fell to the wayside because we were like, fuck, like we wanted to go out with the Loomies.
Yeah, I feel like the tours, the bill is stacked, man. And when we get to sing songs together, like for people who are either coming to the show or came to some, we've been able to sometimes cover a Tom Petty song or Talking Head song together, and that's also really cool. That's been like, yeah, yeah. There's just not you don't always. I'm very grateful for that you guys are out because you don't always like know if you're gonna get along with the band. You just like how they sound, or you like,
Mm,
in theory it'd be good, and then it can get weird. So it's been great. So
yeah,
um,
no, I get that. I'm glad you don't think we're weird.
nah, you guys are great, man. Um, yeah, and we have a cast of characters in our band, and you guys too. So it's fun to see everybody like worlds collide like that.
No,
Um,
it is.
I had heard Lavender Girl or Lavender Days. I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Lavender. Yeah, and I'd heard you talking about wanting a song with three syllables, the word with three syllables, and what was that like trying to find that right word, and I guess more importantly, what was it like making the record? How did that one emerge as like such an important
Yeah.
track?
Yeah. I don't know. That's a great question, dude, because those it kind of like coincides. And like it's cool to talk to you about this because I wanted to pick your brain about, y'all's creative process and the energies behind the songs. But for this record, you know, and like every artist says about every record, you know, this one's different. But like this one is different for us in a couple of senses where it wasn't it didn't come from like La La Land in a sense. A lot of the songs came from like very real pain and learning that I did personally, you know, pre-pandemic and through the pandemic, and a lot of loss. And with Lavender Girl specifically, like I wasn't really writing for anything, you know, you never really feel like you're writing for a project. It just becomes, it just places itself. At least that's how it feels to me. And I had that tune, and that was like the first time that like I really felt like it was like a spirit song, like it was gonna carry the rest of the record, you know, like not in the sense that the rest of the record would be shortcoming, but just like it's the thread, you know. And Lavender just seemed to be this kind of like, it's this word on like, it's so visceral, you know, because it's like on the cusp of like too difficult to sing, but it's kind of phonetic, you know, like it can roll if you hit it right, you know. And it felt like it described like the girl I lost, the time I lost, but also like the actual hue, the color, lavender is like, it's kind of a mix between like melancholy and hope, you know. And
yeah I've seen
like
a field of lavender, and that's like the color of lavender, like there's all these cleaning products that use it because it's so soothing, you know.
Right.
But yeah, when I heard that, I thought about when I thought it was cool that you like knew the amount of syllables, because I've always described writing as like writing lyrics usually is like the fine tuning of it is the last step for me a lot. And it's a bit of a game of hangman where it's like that.
Yeah.
I have 3 syllables. How am I going to spend them? And, you know, like Van Morrison, like saying like, she's as sweet as Tupelo honey. Like if he had, I don't know, local honey instead of Tupelo, it wouldn't make sense, you know, like there's certain words, or there's a reason why the state California is mentioned so much in songs, because it just has this like, it almost has a chime within it. It's like, like
it really does.
It just has this.
Yeah.
And I think lavender has that, but it's cool because it's a little bit of an untapped word. Like I haven't heard it that much. So when I heard it, it kind of made me lean in like, oh, what does that mean? And it does evoke a lot, but it's also a little bit of it's mystical. There's something about it that's like elusive.
Yeah. I love that. Do you think that there were any like, first of all, like I haven't really got a chance to say this to you, but like I got to do like this cool write-up for I got to do like a 500 word piece on y'all's record for Magnolia. What is the
oh yeah, the
Magnolia
Record Club.
Yeah. And that was like super cool. So I was like listening to the record a couple months before it came out. I felt super special. But I mean, the congruence of this record. All y'all's records do it really well, honestly, freakishly. But this record felt like super congruent and like patient. And it's like, it's a weird, I don't want to describe it as simple, but it's like super, I found it like really pleasant to listen to. Like, even though I was trying to be in this cool, like analytical writer's space, how do I make this 500 words sound profound? I was just like, at the end of the record, every time I would finish, I'd just be like, damn, that's just,
let's hear it again. Yeah. We
so do you think that there were any like, is there any lavender in there for you? Like what's your word?
It was it was primal, the record. I think that's why things come across simple. It's like cooking with Italian style with these fresh ingredients or something, where it's simple, but it has its own, I like to think of it as its own hidden complexity to it.
Oh dude,
but it's like, it like washes over. You know how like things you know how like if you play a song, I used to volunteer when I was like in high school at this old folks home with some of my friends. It was like I forget how we even got involved in it, but for some reason we just kept showing up and just, you know, playing cards with them or whatever we would
Yeah.
do, like once a week or every other week or something like that. And I'd bring my dog in sometimes, and it was funny because they would say the wrong name, but we would just go with it. You know. And I realized that they had no filter, a lot of the people who were older. And maybe their memory was a little shaky. I can't figure it out, but there was some filter that was gone, and they were willing to tell you when something wasn't cool to them. And I think the same thing happens with children. Like if you played, so if you sat with a guitar and played it for like a 5-year-old or a 95-year-old, you're probably gonna get more honest reactions than like a 35-year-old because you're like, your intellectual brain is now like too present, and it's like a governor that's overriding other things. And so with this album, I felt like it was trying to take the governor out and just like I kept thinking of a animal like wailing in a field. Like that was like it's like a scream or it's a sound. So a lot of the lyrics were not like on album 3, on our last album, and album 2 and some of album 1, a lot of that stuff was more written. So like writing lyrics versus singing them and then going, what was that? And writing it down like after. So I felt like there was a bit of submitting to like, I think the instincts are good. Let's just let that flow instead of like, let's like overly try to control this thing. And that seemed to, I wasn't ready to do that all the time, but like we mentioned Stubborn Love earlier. That's a song where you can kind of tell that a lot of it was sung because there's not like such a linear thing to the melody. It's kind of going all over. And we were just workshopping that over and over and hitting record forever. So we had all this tape that we were like Pro Tools, but like all this recordings of just rambling. And then I'd listen back and be like, what just happened there? Or I'd know it. So anyway, I think for us, the lavender of it, for me at least, or something that was very different about the record was that on 3, I was trying to tell a very specific story, and I was really setting out to do that. And on this, I was trying to convey some sort of feeling. So it was like, I remember seeing Neil Young when I was young, like 16, and I went and saw him at this theater, and he was just solo. And I remember thinking like, wow, he's just like a sorcerer. Like he's just sending vibes out, like literally, not woo, like he plays something and you know what he's feeling. You don't even know what he means by its lyrics half the time. Like kind of like a Bon Iver thing where the lyrics become blurry, but the feeling is just hitting you so hard. So that became the sort of, I guess, North Star of it. And it's funny because you had mentioned like, I think as musicians, I see it in myself. I thought I heard it in what you said, but it's like all your tracks are kind of like sacred to you. So when someone says like a single, it feels like they're calling something cheap about your baby. You know, it's like, but I think there are these tracks that like there's these tracks that if someone came over and like, I have 5 minutes and then I got to leave, play me a song off the new album, whatever that is, for me, those become like guideposts for the rest of the record. If you can get those done first somehow, it sort of takes pressure off the rest of the record. So I wonder if for you, is that song? For us, it was probably Brightside, where you make one song and it feels like you're going downhill or that the wind's at your back. If you could just get that one right, you know? So was that,
I love that
for you? Was that for you at all? Like the process, was that the song and then other ones flowed a little easier?
I guess it was and it wasn't. This record for us was a very odd creative process. It was the first time we've really chosen to work with like a heavier handed producer. So like the first 3 Caamp albums are all self-produced. The first 2 are self-released. So like we're kind of new to like the label and like heavier production side of things. And we ended up doing the first half of this record with this guy named Brad Cook, who is, good dude, different process. It didn't end up working out like splendidly. I'll just like leave it loosely at that, and you and I can talk about that later. So Lavender Girl, we cut that tune, And like even from like the second we finished it down there, I knew that I was gonna gut it and I was gonna redo it. And it was kind of like honestly in almost an inverse way to what you were saying about Brightside. Like maybe you felt like that you got that flagship tune and it was gravy. For me, it was kind of like the rest of the record almost got done first, and then I was like
Wow.
waiting on my baby to be born, you know, like, so we went back to Ohio, just highlighted, delete that first session. I messed with the tempo a little bit. I kind of changed the drum. I wanted the drum tones to be more like Wilco-y and less Tommy and George of the Jungle, like boom, 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 boom. He kind of had all these tom pills in it, and I was like, man, what y'all doing to me? You know, like this is a folk record at its heart. Like there's electric guitars on it, but it's a folk record, and so I wanted the record, or specifically Lavender Days, to kind of come back to us a little bit. And so we ended up going back to Ohio to like what I call our home studio, and we redid it, and then like from there, like from that moment on, everything was downhill. Like mixing it took zero time, you know, arranging it took no time.
Did you record it in your home studio, in quotes, or did you workshop it and then record it?
So it's half and half. It's kind of a crazy record, at least for us, because like the first Caamp record was recorded in a weekend, like 2 days. Second Caamp record was 2 weekends. The third Caamp record, By and By, was actually like, we did it in between and like at the ends and beginnings of tours. That took us like a year and a half. But we only got to work on it for probably like 2 weeks. You know, we would just get like a day in the studio here, a day there.
Yeah.
And it was our first bus tour. We were running ragged, like, but this tour is crazy. This album is crazy because we did, so 3 of the songs we just had been recording during the summer of COVID, like just because we were bored. And like, as soon as our boys opened the studio doors back up, we were just getting a day a week, doing a song a week, 24 pack of Miller Lights, and see what we come up with, you know? And then we got serious, and we took a caravan of cars and a bunch of guitars down to North Carolina and met Brad, and we did 10 days down there, and we got like 8 songs. And then ended up coming back to Ohio, we used 4 of those songs and then retracked 3. So it's kind of like and I was going through this healing process personally, and it kind of just felt like this jagged little puzzle that when it finally, you know, like Alanis Morissette, right? Jagged Little Pill. And when I finally got it down my gullet, I was like, that's the record, baby.
Yeah, I think sometimes people be surprised what it takes. I think not for every record, but what it takes to make records. Like if you actually go on the ride with it as you're recording it, like it's such a all-encompassing thing that's why it's so rare to hear good records. I don't know, like I know some people are genuinely like, they seem like, and they probably are geniuses. I've never felt like anything came easy, but I also was like grateful that I'd experienced, at least I remember making the second record and being like, wow, that's like my wife came out and she was staying like across the river from where we were recording. It was 30 minutes. And we were so like in a submarine together in a way, like the band, like me, Jer, Simon. And I saw her twice in 6 weeks. Like I remember going out to dinner and we finally left the premises, and like, we didn't even remember how to like really talk to people the right way. Like we were just so used to talking about music, but I was kind of grateful that there was something, so it pulled everything out of you. But that was like, maybe it gave it value, or it made it feel like, yeah, that's why you can't do that. But with a bunch of pros who are like hired guns and like really don't have their thing involved in it. I think I felt grateful, even though it can be a pain in the ass, you know, like to like put everything second all the time to something. It was nice to see it come to fruition and be like, oh, that's what that feels like to, because our first record sounds like, when we made our first record, it sounds like a similar experience where we had known what we wanted to do. We recorded it with a producer who had, I don't think, done a ton of homework at all. And then he really overmixed it. Like, we didn't really want many edits, and he did. So we ended up just like scrapping all the mixes. And but we had the raw materials, and then we found somebody who mixed it by mixing it in a way less, but in a different approach. So it was a lot though when you feel like you leave the home, you leave the nest, and then you're in someone else's turf. I wanted to ask you, like, for us, the interesting part was when we were like more anonymous, and I would say looking back, like struggling, you know, like we were getting by, eking by, but every time we'd come home, we'd work our busboy job or whatever. Like we had side jobs, and then they were lucky we could come and go. They would let us like leave and come back. But like I found, and I remember getting robbed, all our instruments getting taken and things like that. And that stuff never divided us. But the stuff that did divide us, without even realizing it, or there's a bit of trauma, was like becoming more known. There's something like strange unnatural about that, especially if you bond over like things going wrong in a funny way. And when things go right, egos can flare up and things like that. So like, I wish somebody would have told me that, because I just thought, you know, like I just thought it'd be easier once, you know. Once people show up at your shows and you're not bribing your friends to come or something, you know.
No, I know. Isn't that the craziest thing too? And like, it's like, you know, when everything's going cush, you like almost subconsciously like look for stuff to go wrong, you know. And it's like all those backwards energies and mantras, you know. It's like when I was young and Evan and I were starting to tour, you know, like we had stuff stolen, and you know, I had my first guitar, my only and first guitar stolen, and I was crushed and I was livid, and you know, I ended up having to take out a loan from my dad, and you know, I met this guy in a Craigslist dude in an AT&T parking lot to get my new guitar, and you know, and then you fast forward 5 years and we're doing like the Buy and Buy record, and all these companies are just sending me guitars, and I'm like, what the hell is this? You know, like when I was broke and trying to make it, I couldn't rub two pennies together. And now that we're here, I've got like, I'm telling companies no, you know. And like to your point, like with the personality stuff, like, man, that came in big time for us too. Cause like, and I imagine you will have something to say about this as well, but like, because Evan and I started as a duo, that in itself has just like built-in growing pains, you know. Like when you're a duo, maybe people are giving me a little extra sunshine because I'm the singer and the songwriter, you know. And even though he's doing intricate things I wouldn't dream of being able to play on the banjo, it's a little less revered, you know. And then when you enter maybe like the dynamic of adding another member. So like when we did the second record, Matt, our bassist, he helped us record it in actually Colorado Sound, Studio B out in Denver.
Love that place.
Yeah. And so Matt, he played a couple bass tracks when we were in the studio, and he was just like our best buddy from college. So he joined, and for a second, I thought it was the best thing ever. And then it just kind of created like, you know, I don't know, when you add something in, it shifts. And I think I like thought that Matt joining was possibly putting like less of an importance on him as my counterpart, you know. And then years later when Joe would join on the keys, it's a relationship, right? It's a marriage. It's like a constant tending of the garden. Like it's, and I know you guys have gone through some different band variations and rotating members. And so yeah, I can totally fucking relate to you, man. It feels, and it's almost taboo for me to say right now in this interview, but it feels really peachy right now. It feels like Ev and I were talking the other day. He just like, he's never felt better, I think, in his own skin. It's just a creative, and in his own words, you know, he's kind of past like jockeying. You know, he's just like, we all just need to show up and we need to play our role to the best of our ability. You know, like you can use any analogy you want, the basketball analogy, you know, like not everybody's the point guard. So I think for me it was like, all right, dude, like you've got the loudest voice, you've got the songs come from you, so innately I have a little more say. But once I started like not really leaning into that, you know, just like relaxing, letting input come from different places, and like, you know, people know where it originates from, but like there's something to be said about just like a little bit of recognition and respect and patience. And I found that with that, like the jealousy faded, like the jockeying for whatever clout kind of faded, and everyone just started to feel kind of comfortable. And it feels good to be like, you know, mature. Like we're 28 now, you know, and I feel like we're fucking doing it. And then we get in, and then as soon as I start to give myself any credit, I go into catering, and you're sitting there with your two beautiful children and your wife, and I'm like, I haven't even done a goddamn thing, you know.
No, we're a mess, man. We're a mess, but a beautiful mess. But
yes,
no, I think, and every time you think you get the hang of it, bam, something good happens, which comes with it some complications. Like I love having our two kids, but then it makes you miss them. It's like it gets you upset almost how much you miss them. You're like, it was just easier not to miss it. Like you could just be like, we're inherently selfish to pursue this for a while. And now I have FOMO of what they're up to. You know what I mean? Right. So it's a funny thing. Like, but no, I think you're ahead of the game, even being aware of all that. And it took me a while to even start to learn some of that. But I think it's a pressurized thing, and it'll always be there. But it's good to, like, I guess, acknowledge that everybody just wants some respect and to be seen. You know, even if I think it's so strange because the lead singer, it depends on the singer, right? But like I think a lot of singers who also write, you're a bit on an island at times because the buck stops with you. Is like if the writing and whatever else, even going on stage, you know, it's like you can't put on a show without you. So like it's complicated, but just finding ways to express. I also realized that for me and Jer, he writes a lot of like chord progressions, and like there'll be these like nuanced parts that are only he could do, that are like subliminal, but you can hear them. It's like a touch, you know, and like and there's overlap in some of what we do, but like, for example, with lyrics, I write predominantly the lyrics. You know, there's things he's written recently, especially some of these hooks on this last record, where he'll write like I don't know where we are, but it will be okay. And it's like, wow, that's great. And so may the best idea win. Like I think something that resonated with me was when you were talking was this idea that if you want to have better ideas from the group, you have to occasionally use ideas from the group. You can't just like expect people to, they're going to have apathy, and they're going to be like, all right, well, it always has to be his. And that's just it's usually not going to produce the best ideas. So it's been cool. But I remember how in the beginning, what was a big challenge, I think, for Jer and I was like, every interviewer, they just want to know a lot about like the lyrics and the stories, and Jer would like could tell you all about this piano part or this drum part, but he kind of felt like invisible because they wanted to talk to me about the lyrics. And meanwhile, we had worked on, you know, the the music together and some of the melodies and even some of the lyrics, but I just mean it was an unforeseen source of like conflict between us that I didn't even know was there.